So, um, yeah, so we've come to the end of this 3-day conference. Um, I have been working on this with all these presenters, and to see it come to life has personally been even better than I expected, anticipated. Learned a ton of things, and just wanted to recap for the community what this conference was, what our aims are, and where we see ourselves going. And so I think, bookending this conference, we started with Eric and kind of his overview of how we're going to get to a treatment for IDefine. And I think you're going to see a lot of parallels between what he said and what I'm going to close with. And I think you've seen a lot of these themes interwoven throughout the past 3 days. So uh, just to state it, our goal is we use the hashtag of building a brighter future. Right, it's defining a new future for the patients and the families with KS. Right? When I know personally, when I first stepped into this world, um, it was a lot to absorb, and there was some efforts being made, but it felt fragmented. And I think one of our main goals here is to bring this international effort. You've heard from folks literally all over the world: Israel, Australia, obviously the European contingent, the U.S. contingent. There's Carl in Canada, right? There's a huge effort, and making sure that the teams are working together has been an incredibly important initiative of ours. And we have these three pillars that are helping guide us. So our goal is kind of the North Star. And this picture was our original website picture. It's the daughter of a close friend who has Kleefstra syndrome, and I think it encompasses what we're doing. Is we're kind of looking out on the horizon at all the opportunities, imagining what's possible, and then bringing focus to that effort and pursuing it with everything we have. And it's going to take three pillars to help kind of bring it all together. And we've heard it again woven throughout these past 3 days, and to find a targeted treatment. Right now, we have things that will treat this condition symptomatically. You saw from just that seizure slide how many different drugs are being used. We've heard about the olanzapine studies, but again, all these things right now, they're not a perfect solution. They're a band-aid, right? And our goal is to find a more targeted therapeutic specifically for Kleefstra syndrome. And the two ways that we're going to reach that goal is, one, improving the clinical care. We stood up the Boston Children's Hospital, as we've referenced over and over again, with the Kleefstra Clinic as our first effort in 2020. We raised $120,000 on KS Day, and that money was used to fund the clinic. And to the point that I just made about Eric's verbiage around the halo effect, the Kleefstra Clinic was developed. Zoe became a part of the team. Dr. Lipton's now part of the team. You're seeing Dr. Wiltrout. You're seeing all these other impacts, the disease concept model, the ICD-10 code. So, the improving clinical care is a huge piece of this puzzle. And then the community. But none of this happens without the community. So what I wanted to do is just kind of dig into these a little bit more and just recap in the event that folks have missed parts of the discussions over the past couple of days. Where are we with KS and IDefine specific research efforts? So we are doing a couple of things right now. We're developing model systems. We've heard about iPSC lines. You've heard them from the Radboud team, from Igor's team. It's a common need, and we want them to be widely available. And we want to make sure that if there's a researcher out there that wants to be able to screen a potential therapeutic or hypothesis, then we want to make sure that they have model systems available. The good news is there are some lines available right now. There are mice models. There's differing opinions that you'll hear about which models are the right ones to use or not, but we feel like the more models you can have isn't necessarily a bad thing, right? So we want to be able to test these things several times before it ever gets to the point of human clinical trial where we're actually dosing patients. And so having these resources available to researchers makes walking the pathway easier. Eric had said that at our conference last year, that one of our main focuses is making the pathway to walk easier for researchers. So if someone wants to be involved with KS, what are the resources available to them right out of the gate? Is it going to be a heavy lift for them as a researcher? Or is there an organization like IDefine that comes in and says, here's all our resources. We're giving you a huge head start. We just need you to test your hypothesis. And then the ASO screening, La Jolla Labs, you heard Melissa Keenan talk about that screening effort. Again, you've heard ASOs a bunch, the antisense oligonucleotides. Eric has wrote 2 CSO corners that are on our blog about it. You've heard several presenters talk about ASOs. This is a hot button. This is an opportunity for us as a community. There will likely be some failures. So let's set expectations there. There's not just going to be a turnkey okay, let's go develop an ASO, and then we're going to be in clinical trial and helping our loved ones. That's not necessarily the case, but it is an opportunity that provides me personally with a lot of hope. You have seen these worldwide efforts. So we have, Tanya from IDefine Europe and her efforts over in Europe. We have families down in Australia that have worked really hard to develop some efforts. We have these different institutions all over the world. So the Weizmann Institute of Science, where Dr. Ulitsky is based. We have the Riken Institute over in Japan that has put out a couple of formidable papers and has been also working on KS for 20 years. McGill University, where Carl's based, is doing a lot of work. And again, collaborating with the team at Radboud, Hans and Neil and Dr. Kleefstra over at Erasmus now. And there's so many other folks that are working on this condition. So there's a massive research effort taking place. And I just want to say to all of them, thank you. That is, it's probably a little bit underwhelming, but I want to make sure that throughout this closing, I convey my gratitude. Establishing and improving clinical care. As mentioned, Dr. Kleefstra's team existed long before IDefine came along, but she was also incredibly responsive when I first reached out to her and said, here's how you can help build this effort more. And so then we created new opportunities with the KS Clinic at Boston Children's Hospital. Vanessa Coury, Simon Coury, their family down in Sydney said, we want a Kleefstra clinic. And so along with Emma Palmer and several others down in Sydney, the Coury family raised the funds, partnered with the Sydney Children's Hospital, and started a Kleefstra clinic. That, again, has produced incredible results. They've already seen 16 patients. We had a conversation with them Monday night after the conference, Monday night U.S. time, their Tuesday morning. And it also has led to a new opportunity. There's another team down in Australia now that is interested in developing an ASO for Kleefstra syndrome. So they've worked on other conditions. This is their area of expertise. And again, it's just another one of those halo effect moments where, because of the Kleefstra clinic, because of a local family in Sydney taking the initiative to go out and raise funds and launch this up, there's now all these new opportunities coming our way. And so my question to the community is, who's next? I fielded an email either yesterday or today about Canada. And how do we go about setting up a Kleefstra clinic in Canada? I want to have those discussions. We want to support you. We want to develop these as much as possible because we want to make sure that these clinics and the access to the care is available for everybody. But again, it's going to take a team effort. It's a lot of hard work. It's a lot of initiative, but the opportunity exists. And that to me is very exciting. So thank you again. Thank you to the teams at Radboud. Thank you to Dr. Kleefstra and her new role at Erasmus. Thank you to the whole team at BCH, Emma and the team down in Sydney. And I can't wait to look forward with, or to build more of these with others. The community. This is 2 pictures from the 2022 conference that we had outside Chicago. And the picture on the right there, you can see 75 families that came together in June of 2022. And that was a monster effort. Several folks, Mindy and Becky and Mike Goff and Julie Drake, and several others. I mean, I'm omitting people and I don't mean to, but it was a huge volunteer effort that built that conference, and that camaraderie was amazing. The friendships developed. It was for many people the first time they had met someone else who had a child or a loved one with Kleefstra syndrome. And you could see, yes, it was educational. I am kind of navigating between what was more important. Was it the information delivered in the breakout sessions, or was it the opportunity to come together and do cookouts and see our kids interacting with one another? Um, it's really important. And I think having that frame of mind as we look to build out this next conference in June of 24 in Boston, outside of Boston, I think understanding where families are seeing value is going to be important. We want to be building out the framework of that conference now so that we can be applying for grants and helping offset the cost as much as possible. But those are the moments where hopefully you can see the value of our efforts and they become very tangible. Research maybe at times doesn't feel tangible. It will in the future. Clinical care certainly is tangible, but that interconnectedness of our community is definitely tangible, and those moments foster that. Also want to make sure that we're highlighting Citizen, Rare X, Combined Brain, and our worldwide map. These are opportunities for you to have personal engagement with our community and with our effort. The Citizen, we just launched it. I'm not sure how many we have already enrolled, but we launched it yesterday. We provided the link. I put a link out on social media yesterday, really encouraging everybody to get into that system for medical records. I had heard a podcast from SynGap. Mike Groglia is someone that we converse with quite a bit. And he said at one point for SynGap that they would never do a natural history study. Why? Because for an organization to fund a natural history study you're talking about funding in the millions of dollars. It's incredibly expensive. And Citizen basically offers that in a digital atmosphere where it's super accessible. It takes 15 minutes of time, and then they start pulling the medical records, analyzing them using AI and machine learning to develop this longitudinal history of the condition. So, Mike, they were able to get a grant for a natural history study, so they're doing a more traditional one, which just complements the effort. But for a step one for us as a community, the Citizen Initiative is a huge opportunity that we want to take advantage of. So again, I encourage you. Virginia came on and presented yesterday. We have a recruitment goal of 50 families. So as many as we can participate would be incredibly important. And we talked about Rare X as well, how those two fuse together. So Rare X is the patient surveys, their PROs, patient reported outcomes. And what we want to do is fuse the clinical data with the patient reported data. Again, this sleep study is a pretty cool example of how there is going to be some clinical data that we're able to access, but there's also a journal that the families will be keeping over 2 weeks to provide that information. Rare X is that on a larger scale across all these other kind of symptoms of KS. And so the goal here is to fuse those two. Combined brain, again, we keep talking about this biorepository roadshow opportunity. There's one coming up this weekend. We're going to continue to promote this on social media. I appreciate the 5 or 6 folks that have reached out via email just over the past couple of days. I have a follow-up for you after this conference is wrapped to make sure that we get you plugged in. And we want to make sure that we collect samples. There is a 20-person minimum for us to really be able to carry this opportunity forward. We're sitting at about 8 right now. So we really need patients and patient families from the community engaging for this opportunity because, as I said yesterday, we just don't know if this will ever come back around again at the funding level that we're able to access it for now. So please, please, please reach out there. And then the final ask here would be to join the worldwide map. We had a little glitch in there that had 595. The ticker has now been fixed, and we're approaching, I think, 615. One note is there's actually more people that have signed up. So once you do register, you do need to validate and confirm via email. And so once you do that, we're going to send out an email over the next week where we'll probably see those numbers climb up closer to 700. And we want to see this trajectory of the community growing. There's a lot of ways where we can utilize that information just to show the engagement of our community. We can show the prevalence of our community. So really, really important effort. And again, I know these things take some time and I know they take effort. And I am also a dad to a child with Kleefstra syndrome. So I know bandwidth is limited. And so I'm hoping that these are kind of breadcrumbs that don't feel like they're mountains to climb, but they're opportunities to engage without feeling like you're overwhelmed. So please do what you can. And I thank you for your efforts because, again, as a parent, I understand the situation that you're in. Also, want to celebrate this where we have leaned in and where we have activated. And on KS Day, which was a couple of weeks ago, we celebrated Kleefstra Syndrome Awareness Day across the world. And here in the States, we did a proclamation effort. And this is a collage of 16 folks with Kleefstra syndrome holding up the proclamations from their states. And so afterwards, we had a couple of more states filter in. So I think our end result was 18 states that recognized September 17th as Kleefstra Syndrome Awareness Day. This just creates awareness about us, where we're not always talking about what is Kleefstra syndrome. We want to make sure that there's a microphone, there's a spotlight. We want people to be aware of our children. So this is a collection of smiling faces holding those proclamations. It makes me incredibly happy to see. A huge thank you to the families that participated. And I've already set a calendar reminder for January 2nd to remind the community. And let's get started on it a little bit earlier. We started 3 months in advance this past year. 90 days out, we began sending these proclamations. We want to see all 50 states as a goal eventually recognize September 17th as Kleefstra Syndrome Awareness Day. So I want to just say thank you to all the families that participated, even the ones who got denied, which is even just crazy to think about, that a state denied us having an awareness day. But we're going to continue after them. We've heard no for an answer before with ICD-10, and that certainly didn't stop us, and it produced a great result. So we're gonna at least double this number next year. A couple other ways to engage. So fundraising. You've heard about all these different research projects, the Kleefstra Syndrome Clinic. I just wanted to offer a little bit of insight as to what the fundraising efforts go towards, and what's it going to take for us to continue this momentum. And so, first, just to highlight a couple of the events that we've seen. So karaoke for Kleefstra. We've made a couple of posts about the Doherty family, newly diagnosed, probably connected with them the first time within the last 6 months, and they took action right away. They did a karaoke for Kleefstra event. I believe they raised around $14,000. Huge, huge amount. It's their first time ever doing a fundraising event. They reached out, they connected, they engaged. Meredith Repick on our end for being the director of development helped build out the event with them. They were pretty self-sufficient though, and they did a webinar with Meredith about what this event took to build out. It was wildly successful. People are incredibly gracious when we can show them the things that we're doing and what's taking place and the value that it brings. People become very generous. So a great job by them. Ann Olendike down in Louisiana doing a tailgates and touchdowns. She has another nonprofit that she actually supports and runs, and she fused it together with her desire to help IDefine because of her daughter Juju. And through that, she was able to connect with another family that was impacted by Kleefstra syndrome. They were able to connect in person at the event, which again, that camaraderie is a incredible thing. And then probably about a week after that, I was connected with a newly diagnosed family down in Baton Rouge. So, as these connections take place, they compound and we start making these introductions. We do an event here called Southern Roots. If anybody wants to come ever, please let me know. We typically have 15 to 20 families come down. We do a big barbecue festival. There's live music and we raise money. All this is to say is the event knows no limitation. It could be a lemonade stand. It doesn't have to be a grandiose event. It could be anything. And we're here to support you with that. We also have these great fundraising tools through Network for Good for peer-to-peer fundraising. You can see the image here. We had 18 teams, I want to say, join in on the Kleefstra Syndrome Awareness Day peer-to-peer effort. It's still live. It's still going on. If you want to create a team, if you want to tell our story, if you want to tell your story to your community, you can do that. And all of these funds, I've kind of highlighted 3 of the funding needs that we have right now. So the Kleefstra Clinic It's a incredibly valuable resource. We need to continue growing it and investing in it. And so there's a funding need upcoming for $125,000 at the clinic, and that's for this clinical care. 70 patients seen so far, more to come. So when you kind of look at it through that lens of what $125,000 gets you, I think it makes a ton of sense from a financial perspective. And then through the halo effect, I know Dr. Sid and Zoe are working on grants, right? And so there's other opportunities that we benefit by, but aren't necessarily captured with that dollar amount. We also want to support a clinical and research fellow at the Kleefstra Clinic. This individual would be 100% dedicated to KS. That is someone who would really move the needle forward for us as a condition and as a community. And again, these things come with pretty significant price tags, and it's going to take a whole community coming together. The old "it takes a village" motto. It's going to take a village for us to raise this kind of capital. But again, we set out to do this in 2020. The community responded, and I think we can respond again. And then the 2024 Family Conference, we want to help offset as much of the cost as possible to family, whether that's through food and beverage, whether that's through hotel rooms, whether that's through sponsorships for travels that for families that need help, accessing the ability to come to the conference. We want to raise $50,000 specifically for the conference. And so but none of those are even folding in the research initiatives. We have a lot of research initiatives, a lot of projects that we're considering, which also are going to come with price tags. And if you feel inclined to lean in, engage, and help us do this, we can dedicate whatever portion of the monies you raise to a specific area. So if you're only concerned about the Kleefstra Clinic, or if you're only concerned about the conference, we can segment out and bucket these funds specifically for those things, and that's the only way they could be used. So I would just encourage you to please reach out. There is a need here. We want to continue growing this. We want to continue doing these kind of efforts. I feel like we're doing a lot. We're gaining a lot of momentum. It's incredibly exciting, and I just want to continue the work. It is an honor to do this work for me. Volunteering, we have a ton of volunteers. So I could list out a whole bunch. I referenced Julie Drake. We have our communications team, Matt Lockwood, Margot Metzger, our board, Andy Mason. Matt also serves on our board. We have, Haluk, who helps with the website. We have Ashley Christians, who helps with grant writing. There's a lot of opportunity to jump in and help with whatever skill sets you may have. I listed, 4 things that I could see us needing immediately. Community first responders, it's the last bullet there, but it's pretty important. The newly diagnosed feeling, that moment, and being able to reach out and connect with someone is incredibly powerful. I get emotional every single time I connect with a new family. And so, but thinking about the other things, marketing and social media opportunities, web development support, and event planning and development support. Again, Meredith and I help as many families as possible, but our hope is that we're going to continue to see more and more of these things develop. And we just want to meet you where you're at and help you build these events to achieve common goals. So thank you to those who have already contributed, both from a donor perspective as well as event perspective or volunteer perspective. I think there's a huge debt of gratitude that I have to enable us to do the work that we're doing. Lastly, again, I've said it. I think I intentionally was trying to put thank you on every slide. If I missed it, that's regrettable, because I have an immense amount of gratitude for being able to do this, help shepherd our effort forward. And when I see the faces of the families, of the kids, it is incredibly motivating. This is an effort that's way beyond my personal connection with my daughter. I genuinely look at all these children and adults with KS and feel a connection with them. I remember meeting Paul Terry at the 2022 conference and how excited Paul was to say he wanted to help bring a conference to Boston. So he wanted Cape Cod. So Paul, I hope I got close enough with Boston, but Paul was also one of those individuals who you saw on the proclamations. He got one for Massachusetts. He was featured actually by Boston Children's Hospital about his story. If you haven't seen it, we have a link to it on our website. It's an incredible story, but just wanted to say thank you to all the participants, all the presenters for this conference. It was a huge effort, and I believe there was an incredible amount of knowledge shared. And so thank you. Thank you to all the presenters, the speakers. Thank you to all the volunteers, our board. Again, it's an honor for me to serve in this capacity. I'd love to connect one-on-one. I'd love to help build this effort further. And ultimately, I would love one day to be sitting here and saying we have developed a treatment for Kleefstra syndrome. So thank you all. This has been a great conference. We will work to have the recordings available soon. And again, if you need anything, please reach out. We're here.